Okay, welcome everyone as we learn the venerable learning of Chok Yisrael for Parshas Achrei Mos, day 5. Yom Chamishi. So, the Ish Iti, the designated person, took the Sar Lazazel, V'nasa Sar Olav, and the Sar carried upon it, as Kol Avinoisam, all of the sins of Klal Yisrael, El Eretz Gezerah, to a land that was cut, meaning to a steep cliff, V'shilach es Asar Bamidbar, and sent the goat to the desert. V'yitot Sefira alo yas kol avayasain la'ara lo yasva v'yishalach yas Sefira b'madbara. Uva Aaron el oil mayit, and then Aaron came back into the oil mayit, upashat es bigdei abad, and took off his linen garments, asher lavash, which he wore b'vaya el HaKodesh, when he went back into the Kodesh Kodashim, v'nicham sham, and he put it in a special place, geniza, to be hidden, never to be used again. V'yeol Aaron l'mashkan zimna v'yashlach yasalvushe butza di lavash b'malei l'kutcha v'yatzni'inun tamon. Now here, Rashi goes into a lengthy dissertation to tell us that this is out of order. This pasuk is out of order. Aaron Amru Rabbi Seinu, our rabbis tell us in Masechtas Yuma, She'ein zeh mekaymo shel mikra zeh. This pasuk is not in its chronological place. V'nosno tamlin divreim Masechtas Yuma. Why it's put out of chronological order, that is given a reason in the Gemara. Rashi doesn't go into it. V'amru kol ha'parsha kula, the parsha that details the avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, all of the parsha Nemra ala Seder is said in chronological order, chutz mebiazu, except for this coming back in the Oyel Mayid. This is out of order. She achar asiyas oilasa v'oilasa. This is after his doing of the his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the nation. V'aktoras emurei par v'sor, and the sacrificial portions, smoking up the sacrificial portions of the bull and the goat, shnasim b'chutz b'bigdei zav, which were done outside with the golden garments. After that, v'toivel, he immersed himself again, umekadesh, and sanctified himself from the kiyur, upoishton, and took off the golden garments, v'loivesh bigdei lavan, and put on another set of white linen 4 garments, uboel oil mayid, and he went back into the Kodesh Kodashim, lahoitzi es hakaf, to take out the spoon, v'esamachta, and the pan, sheikter ba'aktoris, which he used to smoke up the Torahs lifnei lifnim in the Kodesh Kodashim. Ufashat es bigdei abad, and then he removed those linen garments, achar shoitziam, v'loivesh bigdei zav, and he put on the golden garments then to do the remainder of the avodah, l'tamid shel beinu habayim, to do the afternoon perpetual offering. And now Rashi says, just to get it clear in your mind, here's a little bit of a summation of the Seder of the Avodah. V'zehu Seder ha'avodas, Tamid shel shachar b'bigdei zav. He did the morning Tamid with the golden garments. V'avodas par v'sor ha'pnimim, the avodah of the bull and the inner goat, the inner bull and goat, v'ktoris shel machta, and the ktoris brought in with the shovel, b'bigdei lavan, brought in together with the shovel of the coals, the bigdei lavan, with the white garments. Then the Eloi ve'el ha'am, his ram and the ram of the people, umixas ha'musafim, and part of the musafim, the additional offerings of Yom Kippur, bigdei zav. Then Vaitzas Kafamachta, the retrieving the spoon and the shovel, the big day lovin with the white garments. Vishorei Mesafim, the remainder of the Mesafim of Yom Tov, Tamid Shel Bein Arbayim, and the Tamid of the afternoon, Ukteris HaHeichel Shal Mizbeach HaPnimi, and the incense done on the of the afternoon done on the inner Mizbeach, again the big days of. The Seder HaMikrais, Lefia Seder HaAvodas Kachu, and the order of the Psukim according to the Seder of the Avodah is V'shilach es hasar b'midbar, he sent the sar to the desert. V'rachas es b'sar b'mayim, he washed his flesh with water. V'yatzav v'asa es oilasa v'eschelav, he did his oila and the oila of the am v'eschelav v'achatas, and that's part of the Musafin. V'kol ha'parsha ad Achrei Mos, and then afterwards he came into the camp. Achrei Mos, and only afterwards would this pasuk be Oba Aaron. Aaron will come into the Oyel Moed after having finished retrieving the kaf and the machta. Now, the linen garments, Vanicham Shami left them there, never to be used again. Malamit to unin geniza, they needed to be hidden. V'lo yishtamish ba'oisen arba begadim liyom kippurim achad. They don't use these linen garments again next Yom Kippur, but they make fresh ones for the next Yom Kippur. V'rachas says b'sar b'mayim, and he'll bathe his flesh in water b'makayim kadosh, in the holy place. We'll see this is on the top of the Beis HaParva, which is done in the holy place. V'lavash es begadav, and he put on his garments, the golden garments. V'yatzav v'asa es oilasa, he did his burnt offering, v'es oilasa am, v'chiper ba'adai, he atoned for himself, v'ba'ad am, and for the people. V'yischai yas bisrei, b'maya ba'asar kaddish, v'yilbash yas l'bushoi, v'yipok v'yavid yas alasai, v'yas alas ama, v'chaper aloi v'al ama. Now Rashi tells us over here, b'makom kaddish, ha'makudish b'kedushas hazara. The mikveh that he was toivel in was in a holy place, sanctified with the kedusha of the Hazara. V'hihaisa begag beis haparva. There was a chamber known as the Parva chamber, and on top of there, on the roof, was a mikveh. V'chein arba tfilas habois chayva l'yayim. The 4 tfilas that were done for the day, between changing from golden to white, white to golden, golden to white, and white to golden, where they did a tefillah for each change, that was done in this sanctified area. Aval Rishayna, but the first tefillah that was done in the morning, Ha'isa Bechel, was in a mikveh that was in a non-sanctified area. There is a Girsa Bechil in the area after the Soireg, after the lattice fence, which was before the Azara. V'lovish es begadav, after he put on his regular garments, the 8 garments, including the tzitz and the chayshin and the me'il, shmayna begadim shu ovid ben kol yimai sashana, which the Kohen Gadol used all year. V'yatzim min ha'heichel el ha'chatzer, he went from the heichel to the chatzer, because over there was the mizbeach hachitzon, mizbeach ha'oila sham, which is known as the outside mizbeach. V'asa esei lasai, that was an ayil la'oila, a ram for a burnt offering, which is a amal lamala, which is mentioned originally in the parasha b'zois yavai Aaron. With this, Aaron went in. Ve'es oila sa'am, v'ayil echad la'oila ha'amal lamala me'eis hadas b'nei Yisrael. This is mentioned before, that from the congregation of Bnei Yisrael they brought a ram for an oila. The pasuk continues, "V'eschela v'achatas," and the fat of the sin offering, yaktir hamizbecha, is smoking up on the mizbeach. V'yastar b'dechatasa yasek l'madbecha. V'eschela v'achatas, that's the imurei par v'sar, the sacrificial portions of the bull and the goat. Yaktir hamizbecha al mizbeach hachitzon. That's done on the outer altar, not on the mizbeach hazav. The ilu b'pnimei ksiv. By the inner altar, the altar of gold, says Lo Yisalu alav Ketayra Zaira v'ala umincha. Don't offer upon it any strange incense, or a burnt offering, or a meal offering. V'amishaleach es asor la'azazel, the one who sends the he-goat to Azazel, yechabes begadav, he's toivel his clothing, v'rachas es b'tzara b'mayim, he immerses in the mikveh, v'achar chein, and afterwards, yavay alamachane, he is able to come back into the camp. Now again, Yechezkel continues the prophecy of doom that he tells Klal Yisrael that Hashem is going to destroy them for their sins, and he's going to refine them like the smelting of silver in a crucible. Kihituch kesef b'seikur, like the smelting of silver in a crucible. Kain tuschu b'seicha, you will be smelted in Yerushalayim. V'yadatem ki ani Hashem, you will know that I am Hashem. Shafachti chamosi aleichem, when I pour my wrath upon you. V'yidvar Hashem elai leimar, and Yechezkel continued that the word of Hashem came to me. Ben Adam, Emor, tell her, tell the land, At Eretz loy mitoara, you are a land that didn't purify yourself. At Eretz loy mitorahi, lo gushma, you didn't do maisim tovim, which is like rain that clears the air. When it rains, the air becomes clear. But like Gushma, you didn't purify yourself that it should stand in your stead b'yom zoam, in a day of wrath. Kesher nivi'eha b'seicha, the counsel and conspiracy of the false prophets in Yerushalayim, kari shoei, it's like a lion that roars, and toref toref, and it tears apart its praise. You it's like a lion that roars and afterwards tears its praise. In other words, your prophets prophesied that things will be good and strengthened your hand, and you thought that things would be good, but the truth was, nefesh achalu, you consumed lives, chaysen v'yikar yikachu, you took strength and glory from your victims, almanaiseh hirbu b'seicha, and you increased widows in the midst of the land. Kohaneha, your priests, chamsu seirasi, corrupted my Torah, vayechalu kadoshai, and you profaned my holy kachim and truma. Ben kodesh l'chel lo yavdilu, you didn't make a distinction between holy and mundane. Ubein hatami l'tar lo yadiu, you didn't let people know the difference between that which is tummy and tar. Mishapsoisei helimu einehem, you hid your eyes from my sacred Shabbos. V'eichal b'seichem, and you made me profane in the midst of Yerushalayim. Well, what a sorry state Klal Yisrael sunk to. Now, here, Shlomo HaMelech speaks in metaphorical language, like a choyach ola biyad shikar, like a thorn in the hand of a drunkard. He doesn't know how to take it out. he doesn't know how to remove it. Or mashal b'fik silam, so is a parable in the mouth of the fool. They're told a parable, but they don't know how to repair themselves. Rav Michael Kurl, great, is the creator of everything. V'seicher ksil, v'seicher oivrim. The creator of everything, he created everybody. And he supports everyone. And he doesn't only employ the wise, but he also employs the fool, and he also employs the Ivrim. Ivrim are the Ivrei Drachim, those that just, the idlers that waste their time. Now, Kikelev Shav al Kei, like a dog returns to its own vomit and eats from it. Remember, the dog is a very hungry animal. And the dog returns to its own vomit. Ksil shoyna b'ivaltai. So the fool repeats his folly. He doesn't learn his lesson. That's what he said. It's like a thorn in the hands of a shikar. He doesn't know how to take it out. Ra'isa ish chachim be'einav. If you see a man who's smart in his own eyes, tikva l'ksil mimenu. The fool has more hope than him. Because the person that's smart in his own eyes will never take eitzah, will never take counsel. Such a person will never correct himself. And finally, Shlomo Melech ends off with a word about laziness. Amar Otzel, the lazy person always finds excuse not to go out and do things. Shachal baderach, I heard there's an old lion on the road. Ari bein harachayvis, there's a lion lurking amongst the market, amongst the square, and therefore I'm not going to go out. So a person always says, of course, this is a marshal for people who don't learn Torah. They always have an excuse not to learn Torah. Now, I just want to say over this pasuk Yud that says, Rav Michael Kol, great is the creator of everything, v'seicher ksil v'seicher oivrim. You know, a good boss only hires diligent people. But Hashem gives a chance to everyone. And he supports and he's on even the fool, even the idler. And therefore he doesn't learn his lesson right away. If Hashem wouldn't support him and he wouldn't get supported, then he would maybe have to fix his ways. And as a dog that returns to his vomit, the fool keeps on returning to his sin. And now, our adventure for the day is the second parak of Masechtas Chulin, which talks about Shrita. And we know that in doing Shrita, we have the windpipe and the food pipe. The food pipe is called the Veshit, and the windpipe is called the Kana, or the trachea. And by a bird, it's enough to cut one of those. By an animal, you have to cut the majority of both of them. So starts the Mishnah, Shoichet echad ba'oif u'shnayim b'behema. If you shecht one siman by the oif, either the food pipe or the trachea, and both by an animal, shchita sekseir. Shchita is good. V'rubai shel echad kamayr, and raiv of each siman is also good. Rabbi Yehuda says by poultry, since you could cook it whole or roast it whole, and the blood won't get out, and you also have to shech the jugular veins. 50% is no good. Half of one siman by a bird, or ve'echad v'chatzi b'behema, 1.5 by an animal, shchitas psula. But rav echad b'oif, the majority of one by a bird, v'rav shnayim b'behema, or the majority of both by an animal, shchitas ksheira. If one slaughters two heads at one time with one swipe, if two people are holding a knife, even one holds it at one end, and the other one holds it at the other end, but if one goes in a chopping motion and presses down, that's psula, that's possible, because that's a disqualification known as dorsa, as pressing. You can't do shchita with pressing. If he shechted and he cut off the head at one time, if there is in the knife enough besides the length of the knife, you have an extra length of the neck in the knife, so the knife is long, double the size of the neck, it's ksheira. If you were shechting and you cut two heads at one time, then you need the second to have the length of three heads. Besides the length of the two heads, ksheira. That's only if you go one way. You go forward, but you don't come back. Or you came back, you didn't go forward. If you go back and forth, afilu kolshu, even a little bit, afilu kolshu, then no matter how small the blade is, afilu ismail. Now ismail is actually the knife used for a milah, because Ismail is a corruption of Aleph Zayin Mol. Aleph Zayin is 8. Mol, circumcision. Even if it's a circumcision knife, ksheir the shchita is good. Nofla sakin v'shachta, if the knife fell off from your hand downward, afal pi shechata kedarka, even though the shchita was done properly, psula. Shenema v'zavachta v'achalta, you have to do the slaughtering. What you slaughter, ata eichel. Now, what about if there's a pause? You were doing the shchita, nafal a sakin, and in the middle the knife fell, vigvia, and you picked it up. Naflu kelav, or let's say his clothes fell down, vigvia, and he picked them up. Hishkaz as a sakin, because of his sharpening of the knife off, he got fatigued in the middle, and somebody came and finished it off. If the pause was the time it takes to do a shchita, psula. If you pause the time it takes to examine the knife for a pegima, for a notch, for a nick, it is not a good shchita. If he did the proper shchita on the food pipe, but a pasak is a geres, but he tore the windpipe, or he shechted the windpipe, but he tore the food pipe, or he shechted one of them, and then he waited until it died, so he didn't get to shech the second siman, or he buried the knife under the second siman, or paskai, and he cut it from underneath. These are all not good shchita. But the question is, does the animal become a nevela, a carcass, and it's tameh, or does it become a treifa? It's not allowed to eat, but it doesn't have tumah. Rabbi Yishayiv I'm a nevela. Rabbi Yishayiv says it's a nevela. Rabbi Kiva I'm a treifa. Klal Amar Rabbi Yishayiv, Mishim Rabbi Yeshua. Kol shenishchita b'shchitasa. If it became disqualified during the shchita, nevela. Kol shchitasa karai, if the shchita was done properly, v'davar echad achar garm lali pasal, just something else caused it to be pasal. Let's say it didn't have good lungs, treifa. V'haydalei Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Kiva agreed with the principle of Rabbi Yeshiva. Hasheichet behema v'chaya v'oif, if somebody shechted an animal, a beast or a bird, v'lo yotze mehem dam, and it didn't bleed, ksherim, it's kosher, but not only is it kosher, since it wasn't moistened l'kabel tumah, because remember, in order for food stuff to be mekabel tumah, it has to be moistened, v'necholim b'yadayim mesayavos, they could be eaten with tummy dika hands, lefi shaloi huchshiru b'dam, because it wasn't moistened with blood, which is one of the 7 liquids. Reb Shimon says, no, you can't touch it with tummy dika hands, because huchshiru b'shchita, it became readied by the shchita process. Now, what if an animal was about to die, and you hurried up to shechter that it shouldn't be a nevela? Hashoichet es ha-mesukenes, if you shecht an animal that was dying, Reb Shimon Gamliel says the only way you could eat it is if we know that it died only after the shechita. It's only good if it jerks one foreleg and one hind leg after the shechita. Rebbe Eliezer medayim zinka. It's enough if when you shech the 2 simanim, it gurgles and spurts out blood. Reb Shimon, even if he shechted it in the night, a dying animal in the night, and he didn't see that it spurted out blood, but ulamacher hishkim, he gets up in the morning, a matzak solim malayim dam, and he finds the walls of the neck full of blood, ksheira, because that's a proof, shezinka, that it spurted out blood. Or Kamidas Rebbe Eliezer, according to that's the share of Rebbe Eliezer, that's enough if it gurgles out blood. It's enough if it jerks either the foreleg or the hind leg, or it jerks its tail, and this is true echad behemadaka, whether with small livestock, the echad behemagasa, or large livestock. Behemagdaka, small livestock, sheposh the yoda, it stretched out its leg, v'loyer zira, but didn't return it to its place, psula, that animal is no good. She'ena ela hoitzas nefesh bilvad, that's only rigor mortis. That's only a dying animal. But if it was a healthy animal, then the shechita is good even if it didn't move anything. Even if it didn't move anything, sheira, the shechita is still good. If one shechts a guy's animal, shchitas a ksheir, the shchita is good. Rebbe Eliezer says since it's a guy's animal and the stam machshav of a guy is to avodah zara, so that it's possible. Amar Rebbe Eliezer, afilu shchata sheyochel anachri mechatzer kavod shela, even if he shechts it, that the guy should just eat from its diaphragm, psula, shestam machshavas nachri lavodah zara. Amar Rabbi Yaisi says, the thought of the owner doesn't count. It's the thought of the sheichet that counts. And the proof is that we know by Kehanim, the only one that could be mafagel the carbon by having in mind when he does one of the 4 blood avodas of shchita, shechting, catching the blood, taking it to the mizbeach, and zrika, is only the kayin. The owner's machshava doesn't count. So Amar Rabbi Yossi kal v'chaymer advar. Or but ma b'makom shemachshava peiselas b'mekudashim. Madach, where machshava passes by kachim in 4 avodas, by shchita, kabbalah, haylach, and zrika. Ein akol haylach el achara ovid. The only one that could pass is the kayin. Makom she'ein machshava peiselas b'chulin. Where machshava passes by chulin, the Gemara explains only by 2 avodas, the avodah of shchita and zrika. It's only a machshava avodah zara in the shchita and the zrika, not in kabbalah and halacha. There's no kabbalah and halacha by avodah zara. It goes after the sheichet. So as long as the sheichet didn't have in mind for avodah zara, the shechita is kosher, even though the guy who owns it might have had in mind for the avodah zara. Now the din by avodah zara is that you cannot make a mountain a avodah zara, because the pasuk says Elohayim Eloharim, Their idols are on the mountains, but v'lo harim Elohim. Mountains can't be idols. Yet hashaychu l'shem harim, if one shechs to a mountain, l'shem gavois, to a hill, l'shem yamim, to seas, l'shem naharos, to rivers, l'shem midbaros, to vast deserts, shchitas psula. Now really, that's not sheichet avodah zarah, because as I said, these things can't become an avodah zarah. But because it looks like shechting avodah zarah, we disqualify the shchita. Shnayim oichsim b'sakin v'sheichetin. If two people hold the knife and shecht, one has improper thoughts. Echad l'shem echad mikol elu. One has a mind to the river, to the sea, to the mountain, to the desert. Be'echad l'shem davar kasher. And one has a mind to fulfill the mitzvah of shchita. Shchitasam psula. Because since one of them had a mind, an improper thought, it's disqualified. Ein sheichtin lo l'seich yamim. You can't shecht into the sea. V'lo l'seich naharos, not into a river. Or v'lo l'seich kelim, or not into a utensil. You can't shecht to the sea or the river because it looks like he's worshiping. You can't shecht into a utensil because it looks like he's collecting the blood for idolatry. Aval sheichinu l'seich uga shel mayim, he could shecht into a pool of water as long, says the Rav, as the water is unclear. If the water is clear, you can't shecht because it looks like you're shechting to your reflection. Ubasvina al gabe kelim. In the boat, you could shecht on a utensil and let it slope from the utensil into the water that the boat shouldn't get dirty. Ain't sheichtin leguma kalika. You can't shecht into a pit because that's the way of the heretics, that they shechted into a pit. Aval oisa guma b'seich beisai. But, as the Gemara explains this to mean, you could shecht in your courtyard and let it flow on the floor on an incline into a pit, b'shvil she'yikones adam l'seicha, in order that the blood should go there and not dirty your courtyard. Ubeshuk lo yasakein, but you shouldn't do this in the market. Shelo yechake es haminim, that you shouldn't be doing like the chayk of the heretics. Hasheichet l'shem oila. Now, if you take chulin and you shecht it for an oila, now really there's no problem because you didn't dedicate it. And the only time it becomes pashal as shrutei chutz is only if you dedicated it. But since this is something that you could dedicate with a verbal declaration, so Ashaycha l'shem oila l'shem zvachim, or like for a shlamim, or l'shem ashim tali, for an ashim brought in case of a suffix, l'shem pesach, l'shem taida, for a Thanksgiving offering, shchitas psula. Now, even though really it's not puzzle, because since you didn't sanctify it, it's not shrutei chutz. But since it's a davar that you could bring as a neder or nedava and sanctify it by your declaration alone, it could be that it looks like you're sanctifying it right now. However, Reb Shimon says since it's chulin, it doesn't get disqualified. Shnayim oichsim b'sakin, two people holding a knife, v'sheichad and echad l'shem echad b'kol elu. One does it for an oila or a shlamim, v'echad l'shem davar kasher, shchitasim psula. However, hasheich l'shem chatas. Now, a sin offering you can't dedicate now. And if it would be a sin offering, it would have a curl. A shem ashim vade, a definite guilt offering, like an ashim me'ilah or an ashim gezelis, l'shem b'char, for a firstborn, it would have a curl if it was a firstborn, or l'shem ma'aser for ma'aser behema, or l'shem tmura that it was exchanged with another animal that's hektish. These are things that you can't declare on the spot. Shritas ksheira, zaklal, kol davar sheneder v'nidav, anything that could be brought as a neder, which is hari olai, or nidav, which is hari zeh. Hasheich l'shmai, if you shecht it for its designation, also, because could be you declared it right now as an oil, and then it would be shkutei chutz. But for she'ena nidav, that which can't be brought by a declaration alone, you have to be chayiv in it. You had to be chayiv for that chatas. You had to do chilul Shabbos. It had to be a bechar. It had to be an exchange, and that would have a curl. And since it doesn't have a curl, So Hasheichel L'Shmai, well, everybody knows it's not an oil, it's not a Tmura, it's not Shkutei Chutz, and therefore it is kosher. Now the Gemara continues in Masechtas Chulin, and it says, V'Omar, it says in the pasuk, Aha, behold, Hashem Elikim, Hinei nafshi loy metuma, my soul wasn't defied, Unavelu treifa lo yachalti, and I didn't eat carcass or treifa, minu urai, from my youth, V'ad ata, and until now, v'loy ba b'fi basar pigel, and basar pigel, which is an Isser Karis, didn't come into my mouth. Now, the Gemara says that this doesn't sound like such an accolade. This pasuk is giving an accolade, so it's really talking about much less severe crimes. Hinei nafshi loy metuma means that I didn't have forbidden thoughts in the day that I should see a nocturnal pollution in the night. Shelo yerharti b'yom lovely day tuma b'layla, that I didn't have any sinful thoughts during the day that I should come to tum in the night. Unavelo treifa lo yechalti shelo yechalti b'sar kos me'ayla. I didn't eat from any meat that they said, hurry up, shecht it, it's going to die. I didn't eat from an animal that a chacham had to paskin on whether it's kosher or not. I never took a chance. I didn't eat from an animal before its priestly gifts were given, which is the Zroya al Chayayim, the Keva, the right shoulder, the cheeks, and the maw. Rava Shara Treifta, Rava permitted a Treifa, Uzvan Mina Bisra, and yet he sold its meat. And yet he bought from its meat. So his wife asked him, he married the daughter of Chisda, so his wife asked him, Amalei Basra of Chisda, Abba Shari Bukhra, my father permitted a firstborn and said that the blemish was one that the Kayin was allowed to eat it, but V'lei Zavan Minei Bisra, but he didn't buy from it meat. So he says, yeah, over there, because it was a permitted Bukhar, it cannot be sold by scale. It has to be sold by estimation, because you have to treat it with sanctity, because it was a form of firstborn. And therefore it's sold cheaper. It's sold by estimation. And therefore it's sold cheaper, so your father would gain from his psak that he says it's a permitted bechar. But here, the treif is sold by weight. I'm not getting any better deal. What are you going to say? I get from the best cut? The best cut? I always get the best cut. I'm the Rav and Mechuzah. They always give me the best cut. I'm Rav Chisda, who is a true Talmid Chacham. This is somebody who sees a treifa in his own animal and disqualifies his own animal. Treifa is one of the fatal flaws, like a perforated membrane of the brain. An animal is very expensive. So he's considered an Erlich Talmid Chacham if he disqualifies his own animal. Who is somebody who hates gifts and will live, because if he disqualifies his own animal and suffers a loss, he's not going to take gifts. Somebody who learns Chumash and Mishnayos and sees a treifa disqualifying his own animal, and served sages to know the Gemara, the work of his hands he eats, ashrecha v'toivlach, fortunate and it will be good for you. Rav Zidai mezeichen v'neiches shnei olamayis, he merits having both worlds, ha'olam hazeh v'olam haba, this world and the next world. Ashrecha v'olam hazeh, it's fortunate in this world, v'toivlach l'olam haba. Rabbi Lazar kiav mishadrulei mebei nesiya midei, when they sent him a gift from the house of the Nasi, lo yishakel, because of Seinei Matan Siechya. When they invited him to a royal feast, lo yazal, he wouldn't go. He didn't want to take those gifts. You don't want me to live? If you hate gifts, you will live. Rabbi Zera ki mishadrele, when they sent him a gift, lo shakel. But ki ava mizamnele, when they invited him, Ozil, he went, because he said, I'm not taking it for free, because they derive honor by my coming. Amar isyakuriyu de misyakrubi, they derive honor by my coming, and that's my payment for the meal. Now we learn a very esoteric piece of Zohar. I'm going to give a waiver in advance that I can't be 100% sure that I'm teaching it the right way, but we will do our best, as it was said over by the great Mefarshim of the Chok, that even if the one who learns it doesn't understand it, but his neshama understands it. Tana, Ma'ilech Siv, Ve'eva Oshis Bein Cho Uvein Isha, and I will create enmity between you, the snake, and the woman, and Chava. Arba ve'esim zinei miso avusa, 24 types of tumah, atul chivya benukva. Did the snake impart to the woman, to Chava, kad ischaberima, when he united with her. Either this means literally, because it says that the snake had bia with Chava, or it means figuratively, when he united with her in the sin against God from eating with the Eitz Hadas. And where do we know 24 types of tumah? Kochushban ve'eva. Ve'eva is begematria 24. Ve'esrim v'arba zinin, or ve'esrim v'arba dinin, and 24 types of judgment, misorin la'ela, were awakened above by this pollution. Ve'esrim v'arba l'sata, and 24 pollutions reverberated in the world below. And v'sara rabba, and the extra here, v'tufrei sigiu, and long nails, have upon it this tumah. Uchedein dinin misarin b'koila. These things awaken judgment. V'tana. Now this, I want to tell you, this is a chumrah of the Zohar, which is not applicable to halacha. V'tana kad bois itzisal is taka. When a woman wants to purify herself in the mikveh, boy l'safra ahu sara de rabbi b'yuma di'i misava. She has to cut off the hair that grew during her time of nidus. Now we know that we don't cut the hair off. We just make sure that there's no knots and no chatzitza, no interposition. But she also has to l'safra tufra. She has to cut her long nails. That shouldn't be a chatzitza. V'kol hahu zuama di behind, and get rid of all the tumah that is connected with it. The tana beraze de misa avusa, for we have taught in the secrets of tumah. Zuama de tufrin, the tumah that lies on the nails that are cut. Yisar zuama achra, awakens another tumah. And because of this, boyin geniza, they need to be hidden. Umanda averlon legamre, and one who burns them, right? Instead of hiding them or flushing them down the toilet. Umanda averlon legamre, one who burns them, ki'ilu aser chesed ba'olma. It's like awaiting kindness in the world. Tanya, loy liboy leinish lemehav duchrona lezinim bishin. A person should not cooperate to bring a remembrance to the bad things. The Tanenon, we learned, elef va'arba ma'av v'chamesh zinim bishin, 1,400 and 5 types of bad things, Misachadan Bahu Zuama, 1,405 things united with the foul pollution that the Nachash imparted to Chava, the Atul Chivya Takifa, that the strong snake caused. Vikulan misorin, and they all awaken, Bahu Zuama de Tufrin, in the pollution on the nails. Va'afilu man de boy, it's so bad that if one wants to sin, Yavid bu charshin lebnei nasha. With these nails, a person could do sorcery against humans. Misham inan detalyan bu, because of all the tumah that's connected to it. Oman da averlan, and one who destroys them, kilu azkei chesed ba'alma. It's like he did kindness in the world. V'din and bishin loy mishtaken, and then these bad judgments won't be found. V'yaver hahu zuama v'tufra derashim bey, and he removes the pollution and the nails that have their impression upon them. The Tanya, nails are dangerous. Man de dorich beraglei, one who steps upon them, or even with wearing shoes, could be damaged. Now, he says we get an idea of how bad the tumah of a nida is. The remnants of the pollution, the nails, which is just the remnants of the remnants. It's the mekabla v'eschabes b'chivya, the woman who accepted and united with the snake, v'atul bazuma al achas kama v'kama. How much is the tumah of our nidas? V'ayla olma de mekabla mina ma'hu zuma. Woe to the world that would accept this pollution. Begin a kach, therefore it says, be careful, vel isha b'nidas tamasa lo'isikrav. A woman in a pollution of her nidas, you shouldn't come near. Amr Reb Shimon, Amr Kitchaberich. Now here we come into one of the more difficult portions in the Torah. Hashem said that on Rosh Chodesh, you should bring a korban on Rosh Chodesh to atone for me. So what does this mean? Amr Reb Shimon, Amr Kitchaberich, Haviu alai kapara b'Rosh Chodesh. Bring for me an atonement on Rosh Chodesh. Alai vadai. Begin the isavarahu chivya, because the isavarahu chivya, because to remove, yisava means avar, to remove the pollution of the snake. V'yisbasem man deboy. Yisbasem is from a lashon of boisim, fragrance, and to sweeten that which needs sweetening, the sweetening of the dinim, alai. Now, the sweetening of the dinim come from above, from the chachma of bina, which is by the srafim. Srafim oimdim mimalai. The fiery angels stood above him. Because we find that the klipos, the chitzainim, want to attach themselves to kedusha. Al Hashem. They gathered onto Hashem. The Leviim were the kedusha, and the chitzainim, kairach v'adasai, were attracted to the Leviim. The begin hain isar mad isar. Because of them, there awakens that which needs to be awakened, and the asay misitrayu. Because of the kedusha, there awakened the dinim, the klipos, the chitzainim, which came from the sitra achra. So ufhacha here too, Haviu alai kapara, alai mamish, for me mamish, the meat of Tiferes. Begindi is busam, that it should be fragrant. V'yis aver, v'loi ishtaka chivya, and the snake should not be found ba'asa deshari. Now, we have to understand that the moon, its light, the chitzayim are attracted to its ar. And when the light disappears, that shows the height of the chitzayim. In the beginning of the month, when the moon is at the smallest, so there is a proliferation of chitzayim. The kolkach lama al shemi'atati es yureach v'sholta when the moon is diminished v'sholta ba mandalei itzrach, and you see the chitzayim, the klipas which hide its ar, or begin eksak siv, and because of this, it also says that you should stay away from the Elisha Benida Tumasa Sikrab, because she has the tumah of the snake that she was united with. Now, these secrets were revealed by Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Zakah Dara, fortunate is the generation, the Reb Shimon ben Yochai Shari Begaveh, that had Reb Shimon Bar Yochai living in its midst. Zakah Advei, fortunate is their lot, Bein Ilah and V'tatan, both the world above and below. Achrei Ksiv, referring to this, does the pasuk say, Achrei Eretz, fortunate is the land, Shemalkech ben Chayrin, that its kings, man malachim rabbanan, that its kings are free. Mal ben Chayrin, the Zakif Reishel Galah, that he raises his head to reveal things, and to explain things, and he's not afraid. Kahai the Iu ben Chayrin, like this, he is free. And he says what he needs to say, and he's not afraid. And Mal Malkech, Doi Reb Shimon ben Yochai, he's married the Rais and the master of the Torah, married the Chachmas and the master of wisdom. The Karavi Rabbi Abba v'Chavrayu Chaman Reb Shimon, when Rabbi Abba and his colleagues saw Reb Shimon, they ran. Avarota Abasrei, they ran after him. V'Amrei Achrei Hashem Yelchu, after Hashem we go, because he was. It says Es Hashem Elokecha Tira l'Rabbas Talmidei Chacham. So he was an extension of Hashem in this world, right? Achrei Hashem Yelchu K'Aryeh Yishak, like a lion roaring. Now, again, Rabbeinu Yoina talks about breaking our desire. And he puts the breaking of the desire for physical pleasures to humility. Kasev Zivchei Elikim, sacrifices to God, is Ruach Nishbara, is a broken spirit. Leiv nishbar v'nitke, a heart that's broken and crushed, elikim loy sivza. Hashem never despises. Ruach nishbar, a broken spirit, who are ruach hanemucha v'nichnas. That's a humble and lowly spirit. V'leiv nishbar, but a broken heart is talking about something else. Al shviras hatayva agashmas. That's the breaking of the sensual pleasures. Desire is in the heart. The desires of his heart was given to him. In the capital of Tshuva, Nemar HaMikra Hazeh, a heart that's broken and crushed, God doesn't despise. Since this is the capital of Tshuva, Kibala Tshuva, one who wants to repent from his sins, Mitzratze El Hashem, he endears himself to Hashem, B'shviras Hatayva Agashmas, by breaking his worldly pleasures. V'chizemei Ikrei Tshuva. This is one of the main steps to repentance. V'oinema be'inyan Tshuva, Lahacha Yois Ruach Shvalim, Ulahachiyos leben nitkan, to bring back to life the spirit of the lowly and the crushed heart. V'amru chachamenu zichranu lebracha, kol sheyesh by shalosh midas halalu, whoever has these three traits, mitalmidov shel Avram Avinu, is from the disciples of Avram. What are the three traits? Ayin tova, he always sees good in people, sees the good in people. Some people see the bad in people. He sees the good in people. The nefesh shvala, and he has a humble spirit. Inyan nefesh shvala she'ein ha'ilach, no. The nefesh shvala, and a lowly spirit. Inyan nefesh shvala is she'ein ha'ilach achar atayv hagashmes. He doesn't follow the permitted pleasures. Gam b'dvarim ha'mutarim, even by things that are permitted. K'mayt shemetzinu shabra Avram, when he saw her reflection in the Nile, he says, now I know you're pretty. Now, she was called Yiska Shakol Seichen B'Yafya, but he never looked at her to enjoy her beauty. He didn't look at her Lizbainin al Chunas Yafya to enjoy her beautiful form. So he stayed away from even that which was permitted. This is not for us, but it says about the Palakshim of David. Now, David had a certain amount of wives. A king was allowed to have 16 wives, but he didn't sleep with his concubines. Vatiyenet Tsururis, his concubines, were tied ad Yom Musa, until the day of their death. Almadas Chayis. They were like Lebedik widows. He had 18 wives. They were like Lebedik widows. He never slept with them. But he made them beautiful so that he would be able to exercise withholding his desires. That they should have their hairs done. And he gave them perfumes and cosmetics in order to incite his pleasure and then be able to control it. When he subdued his yetzer, all in order to atone for the sin of sleeping with Bathsheba. L'man yiskaper al divrei dvar Bathsheba, but with the incident with Bathsheba and Uriah Hachiti. And finally, we learn the Rambam, Ein memanin afilu odam ne'emon v'kosher liyashaymer chotzer sheyesham nashim. We don't appoint even a trustworthy and erlich person to be a guard on a courtyard that has women, even though he's standing outside of the courtyard, because there's no safety for the tithe of the flesh. And even though he's a trustworthy man, we don't leave him alone with a bunch of women in a courtyard. It is forbidden for a person to appoint a male manager over his home, so it shouldn't lead his wife to sin. Because since the manager comes in all of the time, his wife will become familiar with him, and it could come to an aveira. Also, the Talmud Chacham lishkain b'chotzer sheyesh ba'almana. Talmud Chacham shouldn't sleep in a courtyard that has a widow, even if he's not in the same house as her, because of suspicion, unless he wasn't living alone, but he was living with a wife, that's okay. A widow shouldn't live with a dog, although she's lonely, she shouldn't live with a dog, because of a suspicion that because of her loneliness, she might sleep with the dog. A woman shouldn't acquire male slaves, afilu ketanim, even small ones, if we're talking about a woman that's alone, mipnei achshad, because of suspicion. We're going to stop here, Rabbi Isai. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.